Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really focusing on something that hits close to home. Your wallet, your health. We're wading through the details of a pretty major announcement about drug prices. It all centers around this executive order establishing what's called Most Favored Nation pricing, or MFN. And specifically, the deal struck with Pfizer, one of the biggest players out there.
Right. And our mission today for you listening is really to get past the headlines. We need to understand, what is this MFN thing? How does it work? What kind of price cuts are we actually talking about? And what exactly did Pfizer commit to? It's about seeing the mechanics behind this promise of lower drug costs.
And it's so important because the scale of the problem, it's just huge, isn't it? For decades, Americans have paid, sometimes 10, 13, even 15 times more than people in other, wealthy countries for the exact same drugs. We've basically been funding the world's pharma R&D. The administration's line is, well, that era, it's over.
That's exactly the core frustration they pointed to. The U.S. market, historically, it's carried this a vastly disproportionate share of the global costs. The numbers they shared are pretty stark. The U.S. has, about 4% of the world's population? Uses maybe 13% of prescription drugs, yet pharma companies reportedly make something like 75% of their entire global profits just from the American market. It's clearly not sustainable long term.
Those aren't just numbers on a page, are they? The impact is real. It's visceral. We heard some stories that really bring home the human cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, one speaker mentioned an old acquaintance, a mother. Her wife and daughter both have a chronic illness. And she faced this devastating choice. Does she spend $150,000 on her own treatment, which she needs, or save that money for her daughter's future care? Being forced into that kind of choice, it just shows how broken the system was.
Well, and we also heard about people just going to desperate lengths, right?
Yeah.
Draining savings, working extra jobs, some even thinking about leaving the country, maybe moving somewhere like Germany just to afford their medicine.
Yeah, or resorting to unsafe secondary markets. And that leads to this really sobering statistic they cited. 37% of cancer patients report financial toxicity. That's the sheer stress and burden from the cost. And it actually leads them to avoid or delay needed care later on. When cost itself is stopping treatment, something's fundamentally wrong.
Okay, so let's unpack the fix they've proposed.
Yeah.
This most favored nation, or MFN idea. Usually you hear that term in, like, global trade deals for goods. How does it work for a bottle of pills?
Well, it comes down to this core idea of fairness that drove the negotiation. The president specifically told his team to aim for fairness, not, rock bottom prices. They were very clear. We're not trying to get the price from the poorest country in the world. The negotiators felt that would just utterly destroy innovation, basically kill the drive for new cures. Instead, they wanted a fair comparison among wealthy nations, countries with economies kind of similar to the U.S.
Okay, so how is MFN defined here then? Is it just the sticker price you see at the pharmacy counter?
No, absolutely not. And this is really, really crucial. MFN here is based on net prices. Net prices. So not the inflated list price that's often just there for insurance rebates and games. Net price is the real bottom line. After all the fees, rebates, discounts, middlemen payments, everything's subtracted out. The U.S. will compare prices to a basket of wealthy countries, think Germany, France, Japan, Canada, places like that. Then, for each specific drug, they find the lowest net price paid in that basket. And that lowest price becomes the MFN starting point for the U.S.
Right. And the hope is this finally stops the U.S. from being, price gouged compared to everyone else. The savings numbers mentioned, hundreds of millions of dollars a year for taxpayers and consumers, and they expect prices to drop immediately.
Exactly. And that's where Pfizer's agreement comes in. It's the sort of proof of concept. Pfizer's CEO, Albert Bourla, he negotiated with the administration and signed on to this deal. It's built around 5 key pillars. These pillars are meant to actually put MFN pricing into action and maybe set a standard for the whole industry.
Okay, let's walk through those 5 pillars. They seem like the real heart of this policy shift. What's the first one? How does it directly help consumers?
So Pillar 1 is all about direct patient access. It involves creating a government-run website. They're calling it Trump RX. The goal here is pretty revolutionary, letting consumers buy medications directly through this site, essentially bypassing the whole complex, expensive chain of wholesalers and pharmacy benefit managers, the PBMs. Prices on this Trump RX site are supposed to be at the MFN rate, maybe even lower.
Okay, aimed at people paying cash or those with high deductibles who often get hit hardest. But I mean, can one website really bypass all those powerful middlemen? That seems like a big challenge.
Oh, it's definitely a core challenge, but the commitment is there, and the potential savings they highlighted are huge. They gave specific examples in the source material: an 80% cut for a dermatitis drug, 85% for an osteoporosis drug, 50% off migraines, 40% for rheumatoid arthritis meds. I mean, those kinds of figures really show how much fat there is in the current system, right?
Those are staggering numbers. And I guess those discounts are possible because they're comparing to the real net price overseas, not our inflated list prices.
Precisely. They're targeting the actual cost, not the sticker price. Okay, so Pillar 2 moves beyond the cash buyer and focuses on protecting the vulnerable, specifically Medicaid. Pfizer committed to offer basically its entire range of prescription drugs to Medicaid programs at these MFN prices. That means the savings go to low-income Americans, and it protects taxpayers too.
And the third pillar sounds interesting because it's forward-looking, future-proofing fairness. How did that stop new drugs from just starting the same cycle over again?
Yeah, this is a potentially powerful part. Pfizer agreed that any new drugs they launch in the U.S. won't be priced higher than the price they offer in that same basket of wealthy countries. Now, the administration stressed this is not a price cap. Pfizer can still set its global price, but they're agreeing not to sell a brand new drug cheaper in, say, Germany or France than they do in the U.S. right at launch.
That sounds like it's designed to push other countries to pay their fair share for R&D right from the start, instead of the U.S. always taking the initial hit.
That's exactly the idea, and it connects right into Pillar 4, shared savings. The thinking here is, as the U.S. pushes other wealthy countries to pay more for existing drugs so their prices might rise a bit to meet this fair index, some of those extra profits, those savings, will actually come back to the U.S. And that money is specifically earmarked to fund more R&D here, and also to further lower prices for American consumers, sort of a virtuous cycle if it works.
Right. And finally, Pillar 5. This involves a massive investment commitment here in the U.S., linking drug prices to manufacturing and jobs.
Yeah, this is where the scale is just enormous. Pfizer committed to investing $70 billion. $70 billion. Specifically for bringing manufacturing back reshoring facilities equal to 100% of the value of what they currently import and funding future R&D right here in the U.S. But this huge promise wasn't free. It came with a trade-off. Pfizer gets a 3-year grace period from potential 232 tariffs.
Okay, 232 tariffs. That sounds technical. For listeners, what are those, and why is a grace period such a big deal for Pfizer?
Right, Section 232 tariffs. It's basically a trade tool the government can use. If imports are seen as a threat to national security, and that can be defined quite broadly, the U.S. can slap tariffs on them. It's been used pretty assertively as a negotiating tool recently. So for Pfizer, getting a 3-year shield from those potential future penalties in exchange for locking in this massive, verifiable $70 billion U.S. investment, well, it reduces their risk significantly. They're essentially trading future uncertainty for a guaranteed domestic commitment now.
Okay, we've got the pillars, the mechanism. But let's talk about the negotiations. This whole deal was seen as, almost impossible. What leverage did the administration actually use to get Pfizer to agree to these terms?
The main hammer was the clear threat of tariffs if companies didn't cooperate. The administration basically said, look, we're ready to put extra tariffs, maybe 5 to 8%, on drugs from countries that don't equalize prices. The message to pharma was pretty blunt. Agree to MFN voluntarily, or we'll just take that price difference back through tariffs anyway. It framed cooperation as the simpler, less painful path, plus you get the investment protection.
And the FDA also chipped in with a pretty clever incentive, didn't they? Something with real financial value.
Oh, definitely. The FDA commissioner announced they'd fast-track future drug applications, basically bump them to the front of the review queue for companies that did certain things, like moving manufacturing to the U.S., meeting public health needs, or critically equalizing their prices with that wealthy country basket. They even put a street value on this fast-track voucher, estimating it around $500 million each.
$500 million, just for getting your application reviewed faster. That's a serious carrot.
It's huge. Getting a drug to market even 6 months earlier can mean billions in extra revenue. So you had this pincer movement, the tariff stick on one side, the FDA voucher carrot on the other. It created a pretty compelling reason to comply.
It really is remarkable, this idea indexing U.S. drug prices internationally. It's been talked about by both parties for, 2 decades? And now it's happened. And Pfizer's just the start, apparently. They specifically mentioned expecting similar deals with other big companies, like Eli Lilly.
And when you look at the potential savings again, it brings you back to those stark examples. The president mentioned one specific pill, not from Pfizer, but illustrative. It costs $10 in London, $137 here in the US. Under this MFN approach, the projection was it would drop to maybe $15, $18. I mean, that's, in some cases, over 1,000% price cut.
Wow. Okay, looking at cuts like that, it's obvious this would massively impact government spending, especially Medicare and Medicaid costs. What are the bigger policy connections the administration is drawing?
Well, they argued these savings could open the door for broader healthcare reforms. They specifically mentioned making the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, more affordable. Since drug costs are such a huge chunk of insurance expenses now, bringing those down is seen as, a key step towards making insurance itself more accessible for everyone.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because right during the press conference for this, seemingly bipartisan policy win, the conversation took a sharp turn into really politically charged stuff, like a potential government shutdown.
That's right. Yeah, the MFN deal's cost savings were immediately contrasted with demands from some Democrats to provide what they termed Cadillac Medicare, really high-end health benefits for undocumented immigrants. The administration officials argued that level of spending was just unaffordable, and beyond that, it would act like a huge magnet, drawing more people across the border just for the health care. So it really highlighted this stark contrast, an achievable numbers-based policy win versus this ongoing, really explosive political fight over spending priorities.
So, stepping back, the core takeaway for you, the listener. This Pfizer MFN deal, it looks like one of the most significant actual quantified price reductions in pharma history. The plan aims to protect R&D while aligning U.S. prices with other developed nations.
And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? The administration says U.S. prices fall, global prices rise a bit, pharma revenue stays roughly similar overall, and that $70 billion reshoring is meant to keep R&D strong domestically, but will MFN pricing plus that huge investment truly secure U.S. R&D leadership and make drugs affordable here? Or is this just the start of a bigger global price shift, maybe with unintended consequences for supply chains or innovation elsewhere down the line? That's what we'll need to watch.
Indeed. A complex picture, and one we'll keep tracking. Thanks for tuning into this deep dive.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more video podcasts like this.